Different types of leadership have been described by different scholars, and this classification of leadership is made on bases which differ. The following are some of the main bases. 1. Origin of leadership. 2. Purpose of leadership. 3. Nature of leadership. 4. Nature of the relation of leader with the followers. We shall discuss the different types of leadership in this lesson. We shall also take a look at the qualities and education required to be an ideal leader. Types of leadership. Classification on the basis of origin. The following types of leadership have been accepted in the classification based on origin. It need not to be pointed out that a pursuit of them will throw a light on the origin of leadership. 1. Executive appointed leadership. As is evident from name given to this particular type of leader, he is appointed by executive and his leadership stems from office or post to which he is appointed by the executive. The class of government officers is of this type. 2. Leader appointed by group. These leaders are elected by the group. In India, the public leaders of panchayats, local groups, Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha are elected by the group. 3. Self-appointed leader. But there are some leaders whose authority derives neither from executive nor the group because it is not vested in them by these groups. They advance because of their individual qualities and having attained the central position lead the people. They are also recognized as such because of their qualities. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, who were liked by the public, belong to this class. Here one may be assailed by the doubt that the self-appointed leader may impose himself upon the public scene inspired by the desire for leadership. But in actual fact, this is not inevitably so. Hence, the term self-appointed is employed merely to point the fact that leadership or authority is not bestowed upon them by any electoral body, but their leadership is accepted because of their personal qualities. Classification on the basis of purpose. Leadership can also be classified on the basis of purpose for which it is meant. Different groups make efforts for the achievement of different aims in their respective individual spheres. The individuals who appear to be most qualified and the most resourceful in the attainment of these purposes are accepted as leaders in these respective spheres. There can undoubtedly be any number of spheres of this kind, but here only the intellectual, the artistic, the executive will be described. In this way, this classification includes the following types of leadership. 1. Intellectual leadership. Intellectual leadership is needed in the intellectual field, in the field of philosophy, science, etc. The greatest thinkers can be said to be the intellectual leaders because they show the way and the others follow them. Froome and Shankaracharya were leaders of this category. 2. Artistic leadership. In the field of art, only the great artists can provide the leadership. Artists like Tansen, Premchand, and Rabindranath Tagore can be said to be leaders. 3. Executive leadership. In the sphere of administration, it is the authoritative personality who becomes the leader. For example, the district magistrate in every district is the leader of the district in the sphere of administration, and his orders are respected and carried out by everyone. Classification on the basis of nature of leadership. Leadership, as found in different individuals, is also classified on the basis of its nature. For example, some leaders are exclusively authoritarian, while some others are more faithful to the democratic ideal. The following are the classes into which leadership is divided on the basis of its nature. Authoritarian leader. The authoritarian leader is an individual who likes to assert his authority. Hence, he conducts himself as his fancy takes him. He does not consult anyone else in taking decisions and leads by creating fear into hearts of his followers and subordinates. He does not solicit cooperation but prefers to issue orders and punishes those who disobey him, while those who fall into line with him are rewarded. He keeps all his authority in his hand and appoints reliable subordinates at crucial positions. Evidently, the leader of this kind is an officer and an authoritarian. And to be accurate, he should not be called as a leader. 2. Democratic leader. This type of leader is of a democratic mold in his thoughts, moods, actions, and conduct. He takes advice from everyone and is always anxious to enlist the cooperation of anyone who is willing to give it. His leadership is based upon sympathy, belief, and affection. He does not call himself a leader, and neither does he take all the authority into his own hands. With the authority vested in him, he speaks of himself as the humble servant of the public. Classification on the basis of nature of relation with followers. Leadership is classified also on the basis of nature of the relation of the leader to his followers. The relations of the leader with his followers depends on the leader. They differ from leader to leader. Some leaders are connected with the executive, others are leaders because of their important position in the group. Some are leaders because of their ability, efficiency or capability, while others lead because of their ability in getting work done by their power of persuasion. The following are their classes. 1. Institutional leader. In every institution, there is some individual who occupies the highest post, just as there is the vice chancellor in a university who is looked upon as the highest official or supreme authority. His orders are appreciated and implemented because of the authority vested in his chair. Actually, the institutional leader is not leader but the officiating head. 2. Dominant leader. The dominant leader is so called because he maintains a relation of authority and dominance with his followers or subordinates. He does not rule over them, however successful he may appear because of his power and authority. 3. Expert leader. In many spheres, it is not unusual to see the most efficient and capable individuals becoming the leader in their own specialized field. The basis of their contact with their followers and subordinates in their special ability and efficiency. Leaders of this type do not put any premium on maintaining social contact with their followers, understanding them, or even knowing their thoughts. Being specialists, people come to them for advice from time to time, respect their opinions, and these experts show the way when difficulties crop up in the other parts. Expert leaders are experts and should not be considered as leaders. 4. Persuasive leader. The persuasive leader win the heart of their followers and do their best in maintaining closest social contact with them. These are the real leaders. It is only this kind of individual who really exhibit all the qualities of leadership. Classification of leadership by individual scholars. The different bases of classification of leadership are not the only grounds on which leadership has been classified. Leadership has been classified differently by different thinkers. It will be keeping with the context to gain acquaintance with some of these views as well. Jung's classification. Jung, the famous psychologist, has classified leadership on the basis of various personality types and has made two classes. 1. Introvert leadership. This class includes all those leaders who are of introvert type. Leaders of this kind are to be found in the spheres of thought, art, philosophy, science, etc. 2. Extrovert leadership. Leaders who are of an extrovert nature are inclined to provide extrovert leadership. Generally, the male leaders belong to this group. Leaders in the field of administration, politics, etc. are usually of the extrovert type. This distinction of types professed by Jung has come in for a fair amount of criticism, and most psychologists are not inclined to critique it. On the basis of Jung's classification, some scholars among the Berggrass, Calvin, and Wellman and K. Swart have conducted some tests. It need hardly be pointed out that the classification made by Jung is unscientific. Bartlett classification. Leaders have been classified as follows by Bartlett, all of which have been treated in detail earlier. A. Institutional leadership. B. Dominant leadership. C. Persuasive leadership. Other important classification of leadership in addition to one given above are those made by Conway, Nafi, Wood, Squadwards, and Young. Limited space forbids the detailed description of each one of them here. Many have been mentioned earlier. Qualities of leadership. In the analysis of leadership, the greatest importance from practical viewpoint is that of the qualities of leadership. While this knowledge of qualities of a leader on one hand reveals the kind of person the leader is, it also on the other hand shows the qualities that an individual should possess if he wants to become a leader. Once again, different scholars have attributed different qualities to leaders. Some of the important views will be described here. Constituents of leadership. In connection with leadership, figures regarded the following constituents as indispensable. 1. Common cause. 2. Leader. 3. Follower. 4. Present situation. Qualities of leadership according to Alport. Alport has included the following in the qualities of leadership. 1. Trait of ascendance. 2. Physical power. 3. High mobility. 4. Erect aggressive carriage. 5. Tonus. 6. Tenacity. 7. Face-to-face mode of address. 8. Reinforcement of energy. 9. Restraint. 10. Inscrutability. 11. Expansiveness in his field of action. 12. High intelligence. 13. Understanding. 14. Keenly susceptible to social stimulation. 15. Tact. 16. Zeal. 17. Social participation. 18. Character. 19. Drive. Coffin's classification. Charles Bohr has recounted no less than 79 qualities in a leader, but in this long list, many of the qualities have been repeated. Coffin have tried to place these qualities in some limited classes. According to Coffin, the qualities of a leader can be included in the following classes. 1. Intelligence. Sharp intellect, insight intellectual, far-sightedness, skill and acute. 2. Moral sensitivity. Honesty, justice, proper decision, benevolent viewpoint, moral outlook, selflessness, idealism, and love of truth. 3. Imagination. Originality, imagination, foresight, curiosity, comprehensive interest, and mental flexibility. 4. Restraint. Restraint, self-control, and profanity. 5. Drive and determination. Inspiration, enthusiasm, mobile or dynamic personality, candidness, aggression, desire of name and fame, bravery, determination, patience, concentration, and tendency to pursue to an end. 6. Responsibility. Respected, candid, character, believable, organized, aware of duties, lover of work, concentrated. 7. Self-reliance. Awareness of purpose and direction, self-reliance, confidence, and ability to take decisions, enthusiasm, and unvarying decision. 8. Dynamic physical characteristics. Physical power, shape, ability, tonus, straight body, etc.
9. Imperturbability. Balance, optimism, benevolence, patience, decisiveness, energy, and positive nature. 10. Social responsiveness. Adaptability of social motivation, taking part in social activities, friendliness, affection, sociability, extrovert tendency, and influence on others. 11. Easy maintenance of good relation with others. Acute sympathy, cooperation, humanity, and knowledge of human nature. Coffin has further made these 11 classes even more brief by dividing all the qualities into following classes. Planning. 1. The ability to know problems. 2. The ability to evolve plans for solving these problems. Organization. The ability to organize the necessary objects and the individuals to ensure the success of these plans. The ability to organize the entire system and have it function as it one unit. The ability to introduce sudden changes. Persuasion. The ability of distributing responsibility among different individuals for implementation of the plan. The ability of successfully examining the entire plan. The ability of keeping his own control on the entire organization. All qualities are needed for leadership. From the various opinions on the different qualities of leadership which have been hitherto described, it is evident that it is not sufficient for the leader to be the master of only physical qualities. Here it must be remembered that in the animal world, the most powerful animal is the leader, but the human society, physical prowess alone is not sufficient. Yet, the importance of the qualities of physical power and an attractive personality is not inconsiderable. One can often see intellectual ability and an attractive physical personality going together in the human leader. By his studies, Partridge have proved that all the individuals who scored the highest in army alpha tests were tall, attractive, and of an independent nature. This view, held by Partridge, is one-sided because one often finds a complete lack of physical charm in intellectual giants and leaders. One only need to be reminded of Socrates and Chanakya. On the other hand, it would be equally incorrect and baseless to state that in the modern world, only intellectual achievements are enough to bring leadership to an individual. Actually, in order to become a leader, an individual should be possessed of many qualities of the personality and in particular skill in behaving in addition to physical and intellectual qualities. Education for leadership. Blink and 10 years pass by. It's now 2023. A brand new generation of business and institutional leaders is taking the reins. The world has continued to shrink and is much, much smaller. Technology has continued an unabated, unchecked progression. What is now futuristic has become commonplace. Complexity is the daily norm, and change is the only constant. Opportunities, problems, and grand challenges abound. Will this new generation of leaders be innovators or followers? Strong, resilient problem solvers or servants of status quo? The answers has everything to do with education or how education is adapted to realities and wonderful opportunities of not too distant future. What do educators need to provide for next generation of positive, innovative leaders? If core competence are assumed, like engineers need to engineer, accountants need to account, writers need to write, and so on, what will be the key element of an education that might help students to become lifelong learners, successful in multiple varied career paths? Here are 5 critical elements that every student should be looking for in an educational journey, and educators should be looking to deliver. 1. Language. We live in language and we create with language. Innovation and creativity, solving big problems, leveraging opportunities, all of these demand highly developed language skills. It is language that brings ideas to life, that inspires, and that creates narrative continuity in organizations. Without powerful language skills, leaders struggle to gather resources, to bring clarity to action, and to lead the kind of conversation that cause innovative action. Language eloquence, even, is something that goes well beyond writing intensive classes and the odd English class or two. The resilient creative leader is one who has immersed herself in words, who is comfortable with complex language, and who has abiding sense of power of narrative. The business leader causes actions with words. The engineer communicates ideas and concepts and inventions with words. The nanobiologist must write something sooner or later. It is not enough to competent in a core discipline if you aspire to innovation and leadership. Eloquence of language, clarity, erudition, all of these matter to those who aspire to lead. 2. Leadership. As a discipline, a thing to be practiced and learned, leadership is a woefully low priority in education. Innovation, problem solving, and invention are much more about failure than they are about the occasional success. The concept of successful failure is critical to developing leader and something educators should teach at every possible point in course of a student's education. Students should be given multiple opportunities to experience the thrill and certain failure of leading, of being accountable, of taking charge. Our educational culture tends to be success focused and rewards high achievement. But leadership requires putting yourself on the line, consistently taking risks, and without exception, sooner or later, failing. Without this element of leadership, learning, and personal growth, the educational experience is flat, unrealistic, and uninspiring. 3. Authenticity. Learning about yourself is perhaps the single most important outcome of a powerful educational experience. Self awareness can lead to an ever increasing authenticity, which in turn leads to powerful leadership abilities. Authenticity is not about accept me for what I am. Authentic leaders are self aware, willing to adapt and change, and be who they are in service to others. Education should be a powerful process of increasing self awareness, of coming to know yourself, and of learning the intrinsic value of who you are as a human being, and then understanding the need for constant change, personal growth, and learning for the rest of your life. 4. Breadth. There is an old saying, specialization is for insects. In our zeal to certify, to create experts, and to organize learning around disciplines rather than around say learning, our system of education forces students to major in something. Although this works reasonably well in service to core professional competencies, this arbitrary structure does little to encourage breadth of education. We often speak in awe of Renaissance person as if this were an ideal. But we do little to encourage a Renaissance education. Future leaders and innovators should seek out, and schools should encourage and support a very broad educational experience. Acquiring a Renaissance education is nearly impossible in a system that encourages, actually requires students to say, I am this but not that, at a very young age and at a very early stage in their education. Innovators, leaders, change agents, the folks in the world who cause things to be different are rarely this or that. They are more often this and that. One of the great challenges for students and our schools is to evolve beyond the narrow confines of disciplines and embrace the chaos and uncertainty of rapidly changing world, bearing in mind that the discipline of today is the forgotten history of the future. 5. Resilience. It is an overused statement nowadays, but true nevertheless, and has likely been true for as long as human beings have aspired to anything. Everyone will have multiple jobs, careers, and life experiences, and rarely will any one way of thinking or one path to career preparation have very long shelf life. Circumstances change and change rapidly, and the career students think they are preparing for today will simply disappear in 10 years. Students need an education that will leave them resilient and prepared to turn on a dime. To the extent we teach as if things were permanent and curricula are created as if there are predictable paths to careers, we are basically teaching students to be status quo oriented, and they will find little supply of status quo in the future. Academic dogma is an anathema to creativity, flexibility, and resilience, and students should be encouraged to challenge, to inquire, to develop powerful points of view of their own. Educating students to become innovative leaders is not yet a science and is inherently a messy enterprise. It is not likely to occur in the safe, predictable, ordered, and linear world we tend to put students in. In a sense, all of this can be summarized as the need to teach students to dare, to experiment, and to fail with joy. Perhaps John Stuart Mill said everything that needed to be said about the innovation and leadership in this short sentence. That so few now dare to be eccentric marks the chief danger of our time. Conclusion. Leadership has been described as a process of social influence in which one person can enlist the aid and support of others in the accomplishment of a common task. Although there are also other in-depth definitions of leadership. Leadership is organizing a group of people to achieve a common goal. The leader may or may not have any formal authority. Studies of leadership have produced theories involving traits, situational interaction, function, behavior, power, vision and values, charisma, and intelligence, among others. Somebody whom people follow. Somebody who guides or directs others. The search for the characteristics or traits of leaders has been ongoing for centuries. Philosophical writings from Plato's Republic to Plutarch's Lives have explored the question: what qualities distinguish an individual as a leader? Underlying this search was the early recognition of the importance of leadership and the assumption that leadership is rooted in the characteristics that certain individuals possess. This idea that leadership is based on individual attributes is known as the trait theory of leadership. The trait theory was explored at length in a number of works in the 19th century. Most notable are the writings of Thomas Carlyle and Francis Galton, whose works have prompted decades of research. In Heroes and Hero Worship 1841, Carlyle identified the talents, skills, and physical characteristics of men who rose to power. In Galton's Hereditary Genius 1869, he examined the leadership qualities in the families of powerful men. After showing that the members of eminent relatives dropped off when moving from first degree to second degree relatives, Galton concluded that leadership was inherited. In other words, leaders were born, not developed. Both of these notable works lent great initial support for the notion that leadership is rooted in characteristics of the leader.